Welcome to A Really Good Sex Chat, a podcast aiming to open up conversations about disability and sexuality. I'm your host, Candice Care-Unger, psychosexual therapist and specialist social worker at Care Rehab. Join us as we have frank conversations about sexuality, disability, fertility, pleasure, dating, and everything in between. This podcast is brought to you by Care Rehab and recorded on Darug land. Today's episode of A Really Good Sex Chat is with Heidi Haydon, Peer and Inclusion Development Specialist at Spinal Cord Injuries Australia. Heidi lives with a spinal cord injury herself, and today we are exploring female sexuality, dating, and navigating women's health issues. It's so good to see you, Heidi. It's been a long time, and now it's nice to see you in face-to-face.
Yes, Candice, it's been ages. I miss kind of seeing you all the time in the ward, but it's great to see what you're doing now, and I'm really excited for this, information for everybody.
Yeah, thanks. And it's exciting to have a really good sex chat today. Today we're talking about female sexuality. That's our whole theme. We're just talking about the women and the things that probably get a little bit put to the side because women only make up 20% of the injury population. So, of course, women don't have needs, apparently.
I know.
Anyway.
I know.
Yeah.
It's very true. There is a lot of information missing there for the women out there. So hopefully we can help with that and bridge a couple of gaps.
Yeah. So before we don't totally launch into everything, maybe you could just introduce yourself. Who are you? So our folks that are listening can kind of get a bit orientated.
Yeah, my name's Heidi Haydon. I go by Hides. I feel really formal when I use the I at the end. But I am a T4 paraplegic, so I'm paralysed from my chest down. I was injured nearly 15 years ago this year. I was T-boned by a ute in a roundabout when I was riding my motorbike. So it's been a journey, to say the least. But, it's been really cool. My career took a completely different turn. I did lots of creative things before, like screen printer, embroiderer, and doing hairdressing towards the end of my walking life. But, it just totally turned on its head when this happened. And thankfully, it's pushed me in the direction of peer support, education, that type of stuff for people with spinal cord injury. I now work for Spinal Cord Injuries Australia, so I'm their peer support and inclusion development specialist. So the majority of my role is working with people with new spinal cord injuries that have come through our spinal wards in Sydney. And then the other part of my role is just working on trying to make this world a little bit more inclusive and accessible for us wheelchair users and people with disability in general.
Such an important role. And interestingly, when we look at all the literature about sexuality, they all are saying they want to hear about it from a peer, right? So I think sometimes we put on our health professional hat thinking that we need to have all the answers. But if you look to the literature for the answers, it's telling us to partner up with the community. So I'm like, it's a bit of an obvious one. People want to learn from people who have been there and done that and maybe have some, wisdom to share along the way. So that's my intention today, is to pick your brain and try and get some wisdom along the way.
Great.
Tell me, 15 years ago, you would have been, in your early 20s? I'm not outing you here and your age. But
No, that's all right. Yeah, I was 22 at the time.
Yeah.
So the height of sexual activity and discovery, I think maybe 6 months before my injury happened, I left a 6-year relationship. And it just was not working out at all. It became quite toxic. So when we separated, you kind of go on a rampage. You're like, right, all these people over 6 years, let's go. I went to work as, I know, right? And I had been with, he was my first, and I had been with him the whole time. So I think for me, it wasn't just about discovering who I was post this relationship, pre-spinal cord injury. It was just also just to, see what else is out there. There's got to be more than one of those.
Yeah, well,
what's yours look like?
when you kind of say, hey, I was in my 20s, I was in my peak of experimentation. It's also what we know to be a bit of a peak of awkwardness and not really the best at talking about sex. People want to have sex and they're happy to kind of get out there and play around, but they haven't really, that generation haven't really developed the sophisticated
Yeah,
communication skills to be able to.
absolutely. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
no idea what I was doing. And it was weird. You'd been with the same person for so long since I was a teenager. We grew together.
Mm,
It was super awkward. Even just the night after was weird, where you kind of like, oh, I don't know. It might still be like that. It's been a long time. But yeah, it was. It was super weird. And then my injury happened in December that year. And it was like starting all over again.
yeah.
It's being a teenager again.
So you're in your 20s, you're in a spinal unit. Where do you learn about sex after a spinal cord injury?
Oh, this was really interesting. When I was in rehab, it was super tough, not just because I was young and not just for me, it is for everybody. But the way I learn is I like to just have the whole story. Give me all
Mm,
the info and I'll process it how I process it. Whereas I was kind of drip fed information when the teams felt it was right for me. And I guess where they kind of give it to people in everyone's journey, it kind of just treated everybody the same. So there was no kind of individuality for me. We had patient education every Thursday. I really didn't go to it much. I kind of didn't want to hang around with everybody initially.
mm.
And the person that was holding the education for that, normally it's the clinical nurse consultant,
Yep.
and that person was a 50-year-old man.
Awkward
So awkward.
for a 20-something-year-old girl.
I know I don't want to talk about it in general, let alone with a 50-year-old man who doesn't have a spinal cord injury. So
Yeah.
for me, it was more about seeds being planted, so to speak, in my brain about what I would think about when I'm ready. And
Yeah.
I just wasn't ready at the time. It wasn't till a little bit later. I was always curious, of course. I kind of went on and bought every toy and went a bit crazy that way, which is awesome. I never really had that stuff before. That just kind of went from there, yeah.
Tell me about readiness. What does that even mean?
I think, for me, again, everybody's different.
Yeah,
We
of
all
course.
know that. For me, it was about building my confidence of who I am now. There's one thing to just build wheelchair skill confidence. We work on
Mm,
that a lot in rehab, and knowing that we can get out safely and that we can direct other people. But for me, it was about just building who I was. And that was coloring my hair again, doing my nails, makeup, all that kind of stuff. And, it was a little bit disheartening when I was in the ward and I was straightening my hair in my room one day. And my doctor at the time walked past and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just straightening my hair." And she said, "Why are you doing that? You're in hospital." And I just
ouch.
thought, wow, that's amazing. You're my doctor and you're not
And you're
even
telling me not to
encouraging me
try.
to be me. Like that's me.
Yeah.
My hair's always different colors and always however I want it. So it kind of wasn't really encouraged from the get go. The only
Mm.
encouragement was you can still have children. And I've never
Oh,
wanted children. So that didn't apply to me,
it's a
you know?
fertility chat only, right?
It
Like,
is.
yeah. And the
Like,
fertility chat's really important because I think one of the biggest myths is that you've had a spinal cord injury, therefore you can't have children. And
of course.
so,
Yep.
they've done a good job in terms of putting that to bed, but there's so much more to female sexuality than just making the babies.
Yeah, and like all this is part of it. Us feeling comfortable as we are. Having a spinal cord injury was like just going through puberty again. You
Mm.
literally have to build your confidence again to take clothes off and have people okay with seeing that things don't sit where they're supposed to sit anymore, not because you're aging, but because your muscles have gotten smaller or they're
Mm.
paralyzed or whatever. So readiness for me was just really once I had really built my confidence and I could honestly say to myself, I'm actually happy now. I'm quite happy where I am. I'm
Yeah.
happy with um what I look like, how I'm portrayed, how what my confidence and talking to people. So I felt like I was kind of a good all round ready for whatever that is.
Which is actually incredibly important for dating. You go into a dating, mindset. And this is the work I do with clients anyway. And I kind of say to them, well, what do you bring to the table? Like what dating you is a beautiful pleasure opportunity. It is like a privilege to spend time with you. But let's help us understand what makes you so fabulous. Like give me the 5 fabulous things about you. And I think until people are able to articulate, yeah, actually, you know what, I am kind of pretty hot property and worthy of a partner who sees me as an equal, then you kind of say, if you can't see how great you are, then you're not ready to let someone else see how great you are.
That's it. That's it. It's about loving yourself. And look, that doesn't mean that I love every single part of myself. And, like, who
Let's
does?
be realistic, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's just about you knowing what you're worth, knowing what you bring, as you said, and just being happy, like, and trusting in somebody else. How else are you going to do it but to put your trust in somebody?
And the truth is, you're not going to find happiness in somebody else, right?
Yep.
Like, so sometimes people might get into relationships so they think dating someone will make them happier. We want people who complement our lives and to make our lives better. But until you kind of got that inherent sense of life's okay, no one else is going to be able to do that for you.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so back in the day, you were on the ward learning about it from a much older man and probably made the whole experience not so sexy and parked it for a while.
Yeah.
So, but in your role now as a peer support worker, like tell me about some of the themes that you might be hearing on the wards or some of the concerns that other women are raising up when they're talking about sexuality, kind of what pops up in your role?
It's a question I obviously get more from males than females. I don't know why. I don't know if it is this built-in history of, we're supposed to be prim and proper all the time. I think the worries that people have when they chat to me are, am I going to have a bladder accident? Am I going to have a bowel accident? I can't do all the positions anymore. And I'm like, what? You can do heaps of stuff. There's so much stuff out there. And, that's an opportunity for me to kind of share and plant that seed for whenever they're ready. All that stuff is there. It's just when you're ready. You have to find somebody that you feel super comfy with that can deal with if you have a bowel or bladder accident or anything like that. My partner, we've been together, I think it'll be like 13 years this year, or 12 years this year maybe. And I think in the beginning it was really weird. I just thought, what am I going to do here? I don't know what to do. But he was just amazing. There was one night, like all discoveries, we kind of took our time and everything was really gentle in the beginning. And then we kind of did the deed, and then he jumped up. He said, "Oh, sweat much, or did you spill your water or something in the bed?" And I just thought, wait, that's you. You're sweaty. Like, I didn't even do anything. As he stood up, we realized that the whole time he had knelt on my catheter and popped the leg bag out. So the whole time, here's me for like 40 minutes just going to town, weeing in the bed. It was great. But he was amazing. It was nothing. It wasn't a big deal. Everybody does that.
Yeah. Did you have conversations about it beforehand? Like, what happens if?
I don't think so. Not particularly with bowel and bladder. I think in the beginning I was still in that, hiding phase of nothing's really happening in the bathroom. I'm not really in here for 2 hours. It's just
but like I'm trying to pretend like all is fine and you're dating an able-bodied woman and I just like to do my hair this long. Okay.
Right? Like, he knew what I was doing, but not in detail. So we didn't really have that chat. I think what I started doing was just every time we were going to bed at night, I would just have a quick check of bowels in the bathroom and then I'd jump into bed. I kind of managed it that way.
You had a routine.
Yeah, thankfully I've never had a bowel accident, but I know that if I had it's still not that big of a deal. Horrific for myself for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then you just got to move on.
It's like my dignity will just be picked back up again. Looking back, what are your dating tips for successful dating?
Look, I think I lucked out with my partner. I didn't really do the big dating rounds after my injury or when I was ready. I went out and I went to the club and I went to the pub, and you get flirty and you make out with everyone, and I kind of did all that stuff but didn't do any of the sexual activity after. I actually went to high school with my now boyfriend. So we've known each other since we were quite young, but we had lost contact for about 6 or 7 years after school. And then we just found each other on Facebook, and I said, you should come up. And we've been together ever since. But we still kind of had to navigate that first bit. What was it going to look like? I kind of felt in the beginning to be quite a burden because I hadn't been with anybody. I didn't kind of go through it with a partner or anything like that. So tried to organize things that we could do that I knew were 100% accessible and it wasn't going to be a bother. But now, nowadays I don't look at anything. We just go. Let's see what
Rock
happens.
up, make
Yeah,
it happen.
whatever. But yeah, so I didn't do the massive dating, but I kind of felt like we did in the beginning. I just tried to be open and as honest as I could be about what my limitations were, whether that was my routine goes for this long in the morning. So, I don't do early stuff, sleep in till 11 or whatever. As time kind of went on, I became more and more open as I was trusting him more and more. So I think I just tried to keep that line between carer and partner. I'm independent with my care and everything, and he doesn't really do anything for me unless I'm knackered or he just feels like doing something like any partner. So I just wanted to make sure I didn't blur that line. I didn't want him to become a carer. I didn't want it to be that type of relationship. And there's plenty out there that are like that and they work perfectly fine. I just didn't want that at 22, 23. So it was tough in the beginning, but we got there in the end.
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of talk about the dating side of things and wanting to be staunchly independent, which makes total sense. Trying to keep almost like your own boundary of this is me and that is you, and together we come together as a partnership. And I think that's actually a really healthy dynamic to set up from the start, and would encourage people to do that because it also keeps a balance in their relationship. There's probably heaps of stuff that you do for him too. It's not a one-way
Totally.
street.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Like it's important to recognize that stuff. I think it's easy for us to kind of go down the rabbit hole of I'm the one that needs everything done. I'm the one that drops everything. I need help with this stuff. When you sit there and think about your relationship, I can think of a million things he does as well. Like we're quite even on his shoes are everywhere and I have to nearly fall out of my chair to move them. It's normal. I think when people first get into a relationship, the things I notice, I guess, after spinal cord injury and you're in a chair, if they're newer to their injury, I mean, you kind of assume that everybody knows what you do, how you do it, and what you need. So when we would go out and if he was pushing me if we were going a long way and I'd hit a little rock or something, a little bit of a fright, I'd get a little bit shitty about it. I would go, oh, can't believe you didn't navigate that little rock while you're pushing me. And then you kind of have to pull your head out a little bit and just go, who knows how you do stuff and how you would like to do that? And it's impossible. Just because you're like this, it doesn't mean that everybody knows and everybody should know. It's still up to you to take a little bit of responsibility here and tell people how you would like to do things, especially if they're the one that are giving you a hand or giving you a push,
Yeah, talking about what you need is a skill in itself. As a species, we're not particularly well coached on how to ask for help. This is generally, right, in
Yep.
society. And so when you might need help, and this is all relationships, got nothing to do with spinal injury right now. There's so many people who are writing books about, the principles of making marriage work and all those other types of self-help books, because none of us are coached in it. Like we don't know how to ask for help. We expect our partners to be mind readers. So when
Yep.
you do have a spinal cord injury and maybe life's changed and you don't even really know what you need, maybe, what's your advice to others about how to ask for help?
I had a tough time in the beginning with this, even just asking my partner if I'd had a massive day. I forgot to get a bottle of water or something for bed, and I just thought, oh, I've got to get up, I've got to do this, and it's so much harder. And, I got up and did it. And then he just said one time, look, me getting you a bottle of water is not me becoming your carer. Like, relax. I'm just getting you a bottle of water like every other partner would. I want people to know that it's totally okay. It's so cliche to say, but everybody needs help sometimes, and people love to help. It's their good deed for the year. If it's something when you're out, they pick something from the grocery shelf that you can't reach, and it's just the highlight of their day, So why not just give into it a little bit? Saves your shoulders, saves it if you drop it. Just it's one thing. It's not that big of a deal.
And when we talk about intimacy as that umbrella term, sexual activities and sensuality falls under that. But there's a number of other things. And that kind of opportunity to allow someone to be in your inner life, maybe
Yep.
helping occasionally, is actually part of what fosters emotional intimacy. It's part of what fosters physical intimacy as well. On the occasions that people might need their partner to help with showering or to help with any of the personal care aspects, if it means that you can travel independently and go on a holiday together and your partner's doing it, that's actually all part of how you foster intimacy within your relationship. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean, oh, we've got this terrible dynamic. No, actually, it's how your relationship's working for you. So, yeah, nobody needs to know but you.
No, that's it. And it doesn't make you any less independent to just get a hand for whatever it is. Independent, I've always had a problem with that word. Everybody assumes that independence means you do everything by yourself, nobody helps you, and that's the end of it. And it's just not what it is. Independence is just whatever makes you feel empowered in yourself, whether if that's someone helping you, if that's a piece of equipment that you use, it could be anything. It still means you're independent.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go back to you originally said kind of feeling more like yourself. Now, that's something that I would always talk to clients about when they're wanting to get back into the dating game or trying to find their sort of sensuality again. I usually ask people to reflect on what makes you you. And you were kind of talking about hair and makeup and a whole bunch of kind of creative things, and it changes over time. So here we are, 15 years down the track, and what makes you you?
Yeah, still hair and nails and makeup. Um, not as much makeup, but I think what makes me me now is music. I'm constantly listening to music. I come from a music family. I kind of love how it makes you feel. And for me, that kind of triggers that, can make you feel every emotion in the book. It's just so beautiful. And I love people watching. I can't get enough of it. I love just going for rides. I'm not a big, massive group of friends person anymore. I used to be, but I've changed a lot over 15 years. So I love to do stuff solo. I love going for rides on my Baytech, which is a little motorized attachment on the front of my chair. So I look like a mini motorbike. But I love to just go for a ride, look at nature, observe the world. I don't want to be in my phone. It doesn't work for me. And I I feel like back in the day when we were teenagers looking in Dolly or Cosmo, you kind of go, oh, that's not me and I must be weird. And I find like that with social media. So I try to just kind of ground myself, be outside in the elements and listen to awesome tunes on the way.
Awesome. That actually totally links to our first episode when we were talking with Andrew about coming back into your body, particularly for people who need a lot of care, right? You kind of got caregiver touch. And how do you
Yep.
transition from caregiver touch back into a lover and sort of be like, now, hold on, my body can't quite commute. So when you're talking about being out in nature, what are some of the benefits? Do you feel like being able to be more embodied? Like, how do you think it helps you in your intimate life to be able to come back into your body?
Yeah, I think just the fresh air. I lost my brother 6 years ago, and what he always used to say to me that is hardwired fried into my brain is, and this is usually when we were arguing, he would say, "Why don't you do something productive?" So I'm always trying to do that, even if I have a
Yeah.
bad day and I'm a bit knackered. But going outside for me just kind of makes me go, oh, there's more than just what's happening with me. It just reminds me that anybody I walk past could have lost their brother or their
Mm.
partner or their mum or their dad, whoever. It just gives me just a little dose of reality. And I think it just helps me go, oh, this is cool. Look, this is mad. My life is actually really good and I'm really happy. And I think that contributes to my well-being and mental health. And I think in turn, that kind of translates into our relationship. We do lots of stuff separate and of course lots of stuff together, but we always make sure that we have our time for ourselves individually, just so we don't forget who we are or lose
Mm.
ourselves. But then we also make sure that we compromise together and complement each other. And he's so opposite to me in so many ways, but we balance out really nice. And I think if I didn't do my music, riding around the city rituals, I'd probably be quite tightly wound and stressed out.
And a harder partner to live with.
Oh, yeah, probably hard enough already, regardless of the spinal cord injury.
In our dating work, we talk a lot about finding a connection with someone and not being consumed by them, and sort of being able to keep the balance of what you were just talking about, which is time for self, time for the relationship, time for others. And it's sort of like the balanced three-legged stool in terms of being able to maintain all of those identities and roles and responsibilities, but it's also what helps the relationship stay connected and not consumed. Like if it's just you and your partner, you can kind of lose yourself in that, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. That becomes your identity, and then I think you become codependent on each other, and it stops you from doing those things by yourself because you feel like you can't. You feel like you need someone there to assist you. You might do, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your partner. To do
Mm.
that can be support worker of any kind. So that stuff is so important. I think when we first got together, we kind of had our rules set. We were no marriage, no children. If you're not happy, get out. Let's open communication. We had both been in horrible relationships before, so I think it was really important for me after my spinal cord injury for my partner to know that we are important as a couple, but our individual selves are super important and key to this relationship working. So if we got rid of those things, it probably wouldn't work.
Many people, after their spinal cord injury, spinal shock happens, one of the first things that will stop is reproductive functioning for a little bit, and then it will return. Is this something that comes up? Do you feel like you talk a lot with people in your role around menstruation, the management of periods? And the reality is that spinal cord injured women are still menstruating.
Yeah, it comes up a lot. A lot of people ask me, how long after your injury did you get your first period? And my doctor said to me when they came in, oh, you won't get your period for at least 6 weeks and then it'll start kicking in. Tell you what, mine didn't wait 6 weeks. They were there like the next day
Wow.
on time. It was nuts. So I'm thankful in the last couple of years I've had a hysterectomy, so I don't need to worry about this anymore. But I had quite a lot of time with it. So I think the questions we get from people is, one, how do we manage it? What do we use? Tampons and no sensation. How does that work? I love to be able to kind of give all the options: pads, long night pads, depends, underwear, menstrual cups. It could be anything. And then you go onto the medications and things where you can kind of stop it for the time being. But I think a lot of people are embarrassed, especially when it comes to having a partner. And if you get your period, especially in bed, if you're not somebody that can change your sheet on your own and chuck it in the wash, how do you kind of manage that? And even though I'm someone that could have done that, that was still super embarrassing. A bit of blood on the sheet, and I'd just go, oh God, like if it's not blood, it's poo. If it's not poo, it's wee. What do I do? But that was very early in the piece. My routine is managed way better now than it was before, and I'm really in control. But the period part, I think it was very similar to just sexual activity in general. You would talk to your partner. It's so normal. It's, oh my gosh, fancy being made to feel bad because you have no
Menstruate.
choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it causes a lot of anxiety, particularly in the first little while. I think some women are like, man, I got enough to cope with. Why have I got this on the I've just been
Yeah.
punished for being female. But
It's really hard to get your head around in the beginning too, because, you're being told that your bowel and bladder don't work and
mm,
you need to have enemas and you need to have a catheter, and trying to get your head around the fact that your uterus is not involved in that
yeah.
is weird. I think in the beginning I was like, all right, cool. Take another shot at this universe, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's just finding the way that works for you. If you're someone that needs carers, just really articulating what you want and how you want things to sit, whether it's a pad or period undies. I think it's just really important to convey how you want it done.
They're a game
Don't.
changer, don't you reckon? Period undies?
Oh, I'd give anything for them to have existed when I had mine. I just didn't. I couldn't believe it. But they're amazing. And the only thing I say to the ladies that I work with, if they do go the period underwear route, just to make sure the seams right between your legs aren't going to cause any pressure injuries or chafing or anything like that. So I guess it's the same with everything. It's just taking precautions, but know that it still happens. It's still normal. You just have to wash your cushion cover maybe a little bit more often than you do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just life. But I think what you're also talking about here is like around hygiene and hygiene management, and some of this is able-bodied stuff, not just spinal cord injury. You look at female sexuality. There's a lot of anxiety around hygiene and being clean and odor. And I don't know if you've got any thoughts on.
Okay, I think people forget sometimes that there's some really, really cool products out there that you can buy that like balance your pH to kind of reduce any smell. But you can keep wipes in your bag, like the fem wipes or whatever they're called. There's so many little bits and pieces out there. I say to people, we get UTIs quite a lot. And some of that time, if you are taking antibiotics, can bring on thrush. And when you can't feel in that area, it's really difficult to know, is it the bad kind, or is that just normal, or have been sitting for too long? So I think even though you may not be able to feel or move certain parts of your body, it's still super important to, grab a mirror out, check it all out, make sure that it looks the same as yesterday or whatever day, just so you're
Yeah.
on top of that kind of stuff. Because if you don't, it can get quite nasty and you don't want to feel more embarrassed. Not that you should be, but going to another doctor and another one and another one.
But Heidi, what you're talking about here is like we got to become friends with the genitals, right? Like people want to just
Yes.
pretend like they're not related to your body, and it's like they're part of you. They're your body. Like you need to understand them and look after them, and
Yes.
occasionally maybe need to look at them to make sure that all's going okay.
Yep.
And I think what you're talking about here is just kind of the basics of looking after yourself. When you have a big injury, like a spinal cord injury, sometimes there can be like that detachment of you don't really want to be connected to the body right now because the body's betrayed you. And maybe not you specifically, but that can be
Yeah.
like the talk. And so then to kind of come back into the body and say, well, this is it. This is what I got to live in, and this is how I need to look after it. And that kind of leads a little bit to like women's health issues generally, like pap smears and mammograms. And what are your thoughts on keeping on top of all your women's health responsibilities?
Oh, I'm probably the worst person to have on for this. I was quite traumatized by my first pap smear post spinal cord injury. It happened when I was in the ward, and it was just a bit of a horrifying situation where it was a male for a start, which I know there's a lot of male gynecologists, but it was just kind of this big spectacle. He brought in this whole training team, and I was in a position where I didn't feel comfortable speaking up just yet. I was just on my own, and I just felt really, really isolated, and it was embarrassing, and I hated every moment. And when we kind of just get into bed and lay flat, especially with sexual activity, you need to kind of move your hips forward, So I usually put my hands behind my bum and just kind of push everything forward. And I didn't know that at the time because I'd only been 1 or 2 months post injury. And they made this huge thing out of it. They were just like, oh, she can't even move. How am I supposed to get to anywhere? To answer your question, it's been 15
Traumatizing.
years since I've had a pap smear.
Oh,
Because it's just traumatized me. I can't do it. I'm more a do as I say, not as I do when I when I talk to clients, and just, we've got to make sure that we're putting the right thing across. And that stuff is really, really important. If you're somebody that doesn't look at your bits or doesn't check up on that kind of stuff, then I would definitely advise them to do whatever the frequency of a pap smear is.
yeah, 5
But
years these days, the
there you go.
recommendation. But
Ah,
but what we're kind of talking about here, though, is the risk and the vulnerability to other women's health issues after acquiring a spinal cord injury or any disability, because it's so bloody hard. Like I have a few clients who are really compliant with their pap test routine, and it's just a rigmarole. So it becomes an easy barrier to say, oh, it's
yep.
just too hard. But then we also know that women with disability have got poorer sexual health outcomes due to access issues. So we sort of need to, I guess, have the conversations
Yep.
to help the GPs and the gynecologists realize what's going on. But you're not the first traumatized PAP story. It's such a vulnerable point in somebody's life.
It
If
is
you
too.
having a PAP,
Especially,
full stop.
yes, yeah, just in general. Yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then doing it post injury.
It is. It sucks too when whoever you're going to doesn't make you feel comfortable, and there's pressure to get ready in a certain time frame because they've got a patient after me. And it doesn't take us 2 seconds to transfer to something and take pants off and get in position. It takes a long time. And when you add stress to that, it doesn't just affect us mentally, but that can have impacts on our body as well and our routines. And I think it's trying to spread a little bit of awareness and try the both sides. I really want people with spinal cord injury or women with spinal cord injury to start speaking up. If you're uncomfortable, be honest about how, if you are going for a pap smear or a scan, let them know that you're in a chair. It's probably going to take me a little bit longer. Is there a better part of the day that works for the team? Just a bit of compromise there. I also want this to bring awareness to these companies that it's quite traumatic, and like you said, that might pose a huge health risk down the track for the ladies that don't get their pap smears or don't get scans. It's just trying to get a bit of understanding out there that, like everything else, everybody's different. Everyone takes their time, whatever it is. It's just trying to have a bit of flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, this is like that overall umbrella of health promotion. I feel like everyone comes through S1E and it being taught on how to self-manage and how to look after
Yeah.
all of these really big, hairy things. And women's health issues are not usually on the top list. Like, yes, bladder, bowel, skin, respiratory,
Yeah, of
autonomic
course.
dysreflexia, if that affects, like they're the top ones, right? But
Yeah.
then we drop off. Even dental, I feel like that drops off as well.
The questions we get a lot from the women are, if I do get a pap smear, where do I go? If I do have to have a mammogram, how do I do it? We learn throughout time the different ways we can do that, and just try to say to them, it'll be okay as long as bring someone with you if you want to.
Yeah.
I didn't get that opportunity, so just so it's comfortable. I usually take my partner if I get CT scans or anything like that, because I know that there's somebody else there that understands how I transfer. My legs are going to kick you if you go in front. Don't stand there. So it's just about trying to make that as the most comfortable situation. There's different ways to have mammograms now. You don't have to do the sandwich press anymore. For us, anyway.
All right, our take home for today. Heidi, what do you think is the most important thing for people to know about sexuality and spinal cord injury and women?
I think the most important thing to know is it's still awesome. There's plenty of ways you can do it. There are so many pieces of equipment and toys, but I think the biggest one is this is about you and your confidence and yourself. If you are not happy with who you are and where you're at, why would somebody else? Just be who you are. Do the things that make you you, whether it's crossword puzzles, people watching, sitting at cafes. It's what makes you happy, and it doesn't matter what that is. Life can be awesome. Sex can still be awesome. It's about discovering your body again. I didn't just get together with my partner and go, let's have sex. Okay, cool. It works. We played around. We played with feelings. What happens on the feeling side compared to the non-feeling side both actually complement each other. That's actually really cool to discover. So play around with your mate. Have some fun. It's fun. It's just different.
I think that's the take home. It's fun. It's just different. And that's fun too. Like when you look at female sexuality, one of the biggest things is people get bored. And then they, as they get older, it's like not really the sex they want to have. It's a bit boring. So it kind of just stops or it drops off and so when people are like, oh, I'm not really sexually active in my 60s, it's like, yeah, I got a bit bored of that. Well, I think in some ways the spinal cord injury allows you to say, time to freshen up. Can't just do the same boring thing.
That's exactly it. I always say to people, this is a chance for you to discover a whole new way to look at life, whether it's at yourself or at your surroundings. When you travel the world and go to that same spot you went to prior to your injury, you will see it in a totally different light. And this is the same. You've done the same thing for however long. Change it up, mate. Do something else. Buy a toy. Have some fun.
So Heidi, what's your tip for spicing it up or trying something new or just opening what we would call a new script? What would you try?
Oh, look, there's so many toys. We've got harnesses that go around the thighs and ankles and then behind your head, so you can just be like hands free. Having a look at that type of stuff, it's not taboo anymore. It never should have been. There's an adult shop that that opened just near me in Alexandria in Sydney. It's the first accessible one I've seen in 15 years. It's not up some shady steps around a corner and down in a basement or something like that. This is just real open, easy to get into. Just have some fun. Try some new stuff.
And all of that is what we would call assistive technology. As far as the NDIS is concerned, it is all fundable as far as all the other third-party insurers. This is assistive technology to help you with your activity of daily living, if you want to put it like that.
Yeah.
But you're right. These are off-the-shelf items that maybe 30 years ago were in shady, sticky, flawed places. But now you can also shop online. You can have it delivered to your house. You don't even need to leave home. You can just look online.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's things there too for specifically for people with spinal cord injury. Like there's one, the womanizer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Like that just puts you on another planet. Ladies, get it. If you can. Those are just off the shelf. Like you said, you don't need to order it through a special supplier. The prices aren't upped just because you have disability. They're just stuff you can buy in there. You can buy some cool things where you can sit on top or you can lay down, or he can turn you this way. It's just or she can, whoever. There's just a lot of equipment out there and furniture as well that I just didn't know existed, like the wedges and
it helps with like pelvic tilt and positioning and just looking after some of the other bigger muscle groups without putting strain on something else. Like it's all about being comfortable too. Functional, comfortable, pleasurable, and fun.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I might keep
trademark.
That one. Well, Heidi, I'm going to bring our sex chat to a close today because it's been really good sex chat, and I think that it's been such a beautiful opportunity to even just sort of reflect on all these women's health issues, as well as finding yourself again and getting your confidence back into dating. I think there's a lot of rich material here for people to reflect on and take away, and I'm definitely thinking about the way it is that we deliver information and what is readiness. What does being ready to get back into dating and relationships and sexual activity look like? And it's different for everyone, but trying to find what makes you feel like you again and really build all of that back up as quick as possible.
Yep, definitely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're shining a light on this side of it. Us ladies need more info, people.
Yeah, totally. All right, Heidi, thank you. Well, I'm going to call you Hides because Heidi is really formal and I felt weird even introducing you saying
Did you? That's funny, eh?
Yeah. So we will leave it there for today. Thanks so much. I'll chat to you later.
Thanks, Candice.